For decades, Andrea Bocelli's voice has carried a rare kind of power. The kind that doesn't just fill concert halls, but settles quietly into people's lives. From weddings to memorials, from grand stages to private moments of reflection, his music has always felt personal. That's why the latest headlines surrounding Bocelli have struck such a deep chord with fans around the world. This time, it isn't just about a new performance or another standing ovation. It's about a moment that has everyone pausing, listening and asking what comes next. In recent days, attention has shifted toward changes in Bocelli's public appearances, his emotional statements, and the subtle signals that suggest a turning point in his journey. Supporters are revisiting old interviews, analyzing recent performances, and reflecting on the extraordinary path that brought him here, from a childhood shaped by adversity to becoming one of the most recognizable voices in modern music history. The conversation isn't fueled by noise or scandal, but by something far more powerful: uncertainty. Mixed with gratitude. What makes this moment especially moving is how deeply connected fans feel to Bocelli's story. His life has never been defined by ease, yet his music has always offered comfort. Now, as headlines continue to circulate, people aren't just reacting, they're remembering. Remembering the sacrifices, the resilience, and the unwavering devotion to music that defined his rise. The latest news may be unfolding in real time, but its emotional weight reaches far into the past and possibly into a future that may look very different from what anyone expected. Long before Andrea Bocelli became a global symbol of elegance and emotional depth, his life was already marked by challenges that would have broken many others. Born in a small town in Italy, Bocelli's relationship with sound began almost as soon as he could understand it. Music wasn't a hobby in his household, it was a refuge. Even as a child, he showed an unusual sensitivity to melody, responding to music with an intensity that set him apart. Yet, alongside this gift came a reality that shaped every step forward. His vision was fragile, and the world around him was often uncertain. By the age of 12, a life-altering incident left Bocelli completely blind. For most people, such a moment would close doors permanently. For him, it quietly redefined what those doors would look like. He leaned deeper into music, not as an escape, but as a language through which he could understand the world. Classical pieces, opera arias, and popular songs became emotional maps, helping him navigate experiences he could no longer see but could still feel with striking clarity. As the years passed, Bocelli faced a practical crossroads that few fans talk about today. Despite his passion for music, he chose stability first, studying law and briefly working as a lawyer. This decision wasn't about abandoning his dream, it was about survival. Music, especially opera, offered no guarantees. During evenings and weekends, he performed in small venues, often unnoticed, honing a voice that was still searching for its true identity. Those quiet performances, far removed from fame, built the discipline and humility that would later define his public image. Everything began to change when Bocelli's voice reached the ears of influential figures in the music world. A single opportunity opened the floodgates, introducing him to audiences who immediately sensed something rare. His voice carried classical training, yet it wasn't distant or intimidating. Instead, it felt warm, accessible, and deeply human. This balance allowed him to cross boundaries that typically separate genres, bringing opera into mainstream spaces without stripping it of its emotional gravity. With success came an entirely new set of pressures. Fame arrived quickly, and with it, expectations that were relentless. Critics questioned whether he truly belonged in classical circles, while others argued he was too refined for popular music. Bocelli stood quietly in the middle, refusing to reshape himself to fit a single label. He sang not to prove a point but to communicate feeling. Over time, that refusal to compromise became his signature. Behind the scenes, however, the journey remained demanding. Touring required immense physical and emotional stamina. Recording sessions stretched for hours. Each performance demanded vulnerability, a willingness to open himself fully to audiences who often projected their own emotions onto his voice. Bocelli carried not only his own story, but the weight of millions who found solace in his music. Now, as recent headlines bring renewed attention to his life and choices, many are realizing that this moment didn't arrive suddenly. It's the result of decades of persistence, restraint, and quiet courage. Andrea Bocelli's story has never been about spectacle. It has always been about endurance, and Section 1 of this unfolding reminds youth just how much strength it takes to create beauty in a world that rarely makes it easy. As Andrea Bocelli's career continued to rise, the world saw only the polished performances and emotional finales. What remained largely unseen were the personal sacrifices and quiet adjustments that came with sustaining a voice so deeply tied to emotion. Unlike many artists who chase constant reinvention, Bocelli chose consistency, not because it was easy, but because his music demanded sincerity. Every note had to come from a place of truth, and that truth was shaped by a life lived carefully, deliberately, and often under intense pressure. With international recognition came an exhausting schedule. Global tours, studio recordings, and public appearances began to blur together. Each city brought a new audience, yet the emotional exchange remained deeply personal. Bocelli often spoke about how performing was never just technical for him. It required a mental and emotional presence that left little room for rest. Maintaining vocal health became a daily discipline, involving strict routines, controlled environments, and constant awareness of physical limits. Unlike instruments that can be repaired or replaced, a voice reflects every strain placed upon it. At the same time, Bocelli's personal life evolved under the spotlight. Family became his emotional anchor, offering stability amid the constant movement. Fatherhood, in particular, reshaped his priorities. While music remained central, it was no longer the only force guiding his decisions. The balance between being present at home and meeting global expectations required difficult choices, some of which fans only began to understand years later. Musically, Bocelli continued to walk a narrow line between tradition and accessibility. Collaborations with artists from different genres expanded his reach but also intensified debate. Purists questioned these choices, while mainstream audiences embraced them wholeheartedly. Bocelli rarely responded to criticism directly. Instead, he allowed the work to speak, trusting that authenticity would outlast opinion. This quiet confidence helped him remain relevant in an industry that often rewards noise over substance. In recent years, subtle changes began to surface. Performances became more selective. Public appearances carried a reflective tone rather than celebratory energy. Observers noticed moments of pause, not weakness, but contemplation. Bocelli spoke more openly about gratitude, about the fleeting nature of time, and about the responsibility that comes with a legacy. These weren't farewell statements, but they weren't casual remarks either. They signaled awareness, the kind that comes when an artist begins to measure impact rather than momentum. The latest headlines, while dramatic in phrasing, are rooted in these gradual shifts. Fans aren't reacting to a single event, but to a pattern. A pattern of slowing pace, thoughtful choices, and an artist who seems increasingly focused on meaning rather than scale. For many supporters, this realization has sparked both concern and appreciation. Concern for what may change, and appreciation for everything that has already been given. What makes this phase so compelling is its honesty. There is no attempt to manufacture drama or create spectacle. Instead, Bocelli stands as he always has, measured, composed, and deeply aware of his place in music history. Section 2 highlights a man not stepping away, but stepping inward. A figure listening as much as he sings, acknowledging that even the strongest voices must sometimes soften to endure. As the public conversation around Andrea Bocelli continues to evolve, what becomes increasingly clear is that this of his life is defined less by uncertainty and more by reflection. Artists who endure for decades eventually reach a moment where the question is no longer how far they can go, but what truly matters moving forward. For Bocelli, this shift has unfolded gradually, almost quietly in the way he speaks, performs, and chooses when and where to be seen. In recent appearances, Bocelli's presence has felt more intimate, even in large venues. Rather than grand gestures, there is a noticeable emphasis on connection. Each performance seems intentional, as if he is selecting moments that carry emotional weight rather than simply filling a calendar. Audiences have responded to this change not with disappointment, but with deeper attentiveness. Silence between notes feels heavier. Applause lingers longer. There is an unspoken understanding that something meaningful is being shared. This renewed attention comes from Bocelli's openness about gratitude. He has often spoken about how improbable his journey truly was, not in a dramatic sense, but with quiet realism. Success, he acknowledges, was never guaranteed. Longevity, even less so. This awareness has influenced how he approaches both music and life. Rather than chasing milestones, he seems focused on preservation, of voice, of spirit, and of the emotional honesty that first drew listeners to him. Mentorship has also become a central theme. Bocelli has increasingly highlighted the importance of nurturing emerging talent, especially artists navigating classical and crossover spaces. He understands the isolation that can come with such paths, having lived it himself. By sharing guidance and encouragement, he offers something more enduring than performance alone. Legacy, for him, appears to be less about recordings and more about influence, the quiet ways one life can shape. Many others. Family continues to play a powerful role in this phase. Bocelli's pride in his children, particularly those who share a love for music, reflects a shift from individual achievement to collective meaning. Music is no longer just his voice filling a room. It's a bond passed forward. Observers often note how his demeanor changes when speaking about family, softer, lighter, yet deeply grounded. These moments reveal a man who has found fulfillment beyond applause. The headlines may suggest surprise, but for those who have followed Bocelli closely, this evolution feels natural. Great artists often reach a point where restraint becomes their strongest statement. By doing less, they say more. Bocelli's measured pace, thoughtful appearances, and reflective tone suggest not retreat, but refinement. He is shaping the final contours of a career with the same care that once shaped every note he sang. Importantly, there's no sense of finality being forced upon this moment. Bocelli has never framed his journey in terms of endings. Instead, he speaks of seasons, of change as an inevitable and even welcome part of life. This perspective has resonated deeply with fans who are themselves navigating transitions, finding comfort in the idea that growth does not stop with age or achievement. Section 3 captures an artist standing firmly in awareness, aware of time, of legacy, and of the responsibility carried by a voice that has meant so much to so many. Andrea Bocelli is not defined by headlines, but by intention. And as this unfolds, one thing remains certain. Even in quieter moments, his presence continues to echo far beyond the stage. As Andrea Bocelli navigates this current of his life, the world is witnessing a profound blend of artistry, reflection, and humanity. The latest headlines may focus on appearances, statements, or upcoming performances, but what truly resonates is far deeper. The enduring emotional impact of a life lived in service of music. Bocelli's journey has always been one of resilience, transforming personal challenges into a voice capable of touching hearts across continents. That voice, seasoned by decades of experience, carries with it not just technical mastery, but the weight of lived experience. What makes this moment compelling is Bocelli's apparent awareness of legacy. Unlike many artists who chase novelty, he is choosing substance. Every concert, every public appearance seems carefully considered, guided by an understanding that his audience doesn't just come for music, but for connection. Fans have noticed a quiet intensity in recent performances, a focus on depth over spectacle, emotion over flash. Bocelli's voice, already familiar to millions, now seems to speak even more directly, as if inviting listeners to step into the shared humanity of each note. Beyond the stage, Bocelli has embraced the role of a mentor and ambassador for music. His guidance to emerging artists, particularly those bridging classical and contemporary genres, demonstrates a commitment to nurturing future generations. Through this, he ensures that the lessons of discipline, authenticity, and emotional honesty are passed forward, creating ripples that extend far beyond his personal achievements. It is a reminder that influence often manifests quietly, in moments of encouragement and shared wisdom, rather than in headlines alone. Family continues to be a cornerstone of this period in his life. Bocelli has often expressed how parenthood and family relationships have reshaped his perspective, providing balance to the demanding rhythm of public life. The importance he places on these relationships highlights a side of him rarely seen in media coverage, a man who measures success not just in applause, but in the strength and warmth of bonds that endure behind the scenes. This focus has grounded him, offering stability and clarity as he navigates both personal and professional transitions. The emotional, weight of this moment is heightened by the awareness of time, a theme that has subtly emerged in recent interviews and performances. Bocelli's reflections remind audiences that even those who seem larger than life are bound by the same human realities, the passing of years, the need for care, and the desire to leave something meaningful behind. For fans, these reflections are both humbling and inspiring, illustrating that true artistry is inseparable from life itself. Ultimately, the latest developments surrounding Andrea Bocelli are not just news items. They are in a continuing story of passion, perseverance, and purpose. They offer insight into an artist who has mastered more than just music. He has mastered presence, connection, and authenticity. In a world often dominated by fleeting trends, Bocelli's journey reminds us that endurance, sincerity, and love for one's craft create echoes that last far beyond any headline. As audiences listen, reflect, and celebrate his work, they participate in a legacy that is profoundly human, infinitely moving, and unmistakably Andrea Bocelli.